In today's global economy, the necessity for global communication is absolutely necessary. The foreign language curriculum in schools needs to be heavily modified in order to meet the standards for what careers may require in this global economy. I want to talk about when the foreign language classes should be taught, the content of the classes, and what should happen after the classes are taken and how are they treated when someone enters college. Children learn languages during the first years of their life, and this is the first topic that needs to be discussed. Foreign language classes need to be taught from the kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. Children acquire language during the first 5 years of their life, especially because these are the most crucial years. According to Betty Lever, the brain in a 0 to 5-year-old, the left and right hemispheres of the brain can override one another, leaving it wide open to acquire new speech sounds and new language conventions. After the first 5 years of life, she mentions a process called lateralization, which means the capping off of the brain's responsibilities. After this process, it becomes significantly harder to learn a second language along with your first language, which is why oftentimes in the traditional high school foreign language classes, the students have a lot of trouble learning the other language because this is well after the lateralization process takes place. The key is to intervene early in order to ensure optimal education in the second language and that the students will retain what they have learned. The content of a foreign language class needs to prepare the students for a career later in life. And now we must talk about the curriculum itself and how classes are taught now and how they must be changed in order to meet up with this global economy. Foreign language classes normally are heavily grammar saturated, which means that you must demonstrate an extensive knowledge of things such as nouns, verbs, and adjectives in order to learn another language. It must be extremely grammatically inclined. The language classes need to match the student's competency level in their first language. For example, you should not mention verb forms to a 5-year-old because 5-year-olds never speak of verb forms in their first language. So content for the classroom must match the content for what is taught in English, in this case, in their classes. Another thing is, people can sit all day and choose correct verb forms and spell things correctly and choose the correct noun, but that will not help the person with actual conversation in the real world. After all, the point of communication is to be understood, and if you are understood, you have successfully completed this process. It is okay to mess up grammatically because for someone to pressure you to be grammatically perfect would be considered rude, and if you mess up, it is okay because everyone else will mess up from time to time. According to Chuck Zarowski, foreign language classes need to be a balance of grammar and real-world application or meaning. I'm not advocating to throw out grammar completely, but too much grammar emphasis on boring, tedious drills will make the students lose interest in learning the second language, but not enough grammar will lead the students to not progress past the first level of communication. So there should be a fine balance. Also, we must consider how language classes are treated after the student has completed such classes. After high school foreign language classes are complete, college officials do not ask the student if he or she retains his or her knowledge of Spanish or whatever language he or she had taken. Simply, the grade in the class is looked at, and if it is adequate, it is used to determine the person's admission into college. If we do not assess the ability of the student to retain such knowledge, how do we really know if they speak such a language? After all, if something is really important, it needs to be reiterated over and over, and it needs to be checked, because the things that are most important to us we do every day, and we always need to remember them. Whether it's when the classes take place, the content of such, and the treatment of such classes after it's over, these all need to be considered when revising the foreign language curriculum. If we are to meet up with this economy as fast as it is growing, we need to be prepared to be able to communicate with people all across the globe. Then we could successfully conduct business all over the world.